Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today. Let's do it. How did that one teacher at your school die? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Hung himself. He was the best history or government teacher I had ever had. Unfortunately, he was a wild alcoholic, and I guess when he was forced to retire, he just didn't have anything to hold him to this earth. Rest in peace, Mr. McDonald. One of my college professors passed due to brain cancer. Was a really nice guy, too. He would let you take as much time as you needed for the tests, even if it meant he'd have to stay an hour late. He wouldn't rush anyone or object to them taking the extra time. He'd just sit and patiently wait for everyone to finish. Years after I graduated, a former middle school teacher and her friend were murdered during a robbery. They were tied up and each shot in the head. She was a good soul who in no way deserved that horrific fate. My high school chemistry teacher was up at the board explaining molecular bonds. Mid-sentence, she just dropped. No one knew what to do. Medics explained to our class that she died of a brain aneurysm almost immediately, and there was nothing anyone could have done to save her. To this day, it still causes shivers down my spine thinking about it. My science teacher lived across the street from our high school and went home at lunchtime. Her husband murdered her, and he doused himself with gasoline and then set the house on fire. We were waiting in her class for her. Small town. We had a 4th grade teacher who was super bubbly and unexpectedly committed suicide by starting her car in her closed garage. It was later revealed she was about to be divorced. I was in the other 4th grade class in my school at the time, and I remember the kids being lined up and waiting for the teacher to unlock her classroom and lead them inside, but she never showed up. Learned this 8 years after I graduated. I loved my chemistry teacher, great guy. He was diagnosed with cancer, not sure when, but I heard it was stage 3 or 4 from a teacher. He died when he fell off of a ladder doing some work on his roof. He was pretty old at this point, and not the most fit, and I'm sure the cancer didn't help. Ironically, found it out when I went to do my teaching placement at my high school. It's because of him I wanted to become a chemistry teacher. There was a 6th grade class teacher. She sent her class boys to steal benches from our class and put them in theirs. We were in 8th grade. Our class boys fought with her with our class teacher. After a month, we got the news that teacher committed suicide. When I came to school, everyone was shocked. I knew a teacher died, but didn't know who that was. And my friends go, "It's the teacher who we fought with." It's up my mind. She committed suicide because of abuse from her husband. There were rumors that the husband killed her and framed the suicide, hanging her up. She had 2 little kids in our school. The whole day was up. We felt so bad for the teacher and those kids. High school math teacher. He was a short, unassuming, balding man with a calm demeanor who never raised his voice at anybody. And he also always took the 9th grade behind in math class, which was a strange combination of dummies, dyslexics, burnouts, and wannabe hoodlums. Real hoodlums would just cut class. I was behind in math because I had transferred from Boulder, Colorado to Utica 2 years earlier, where math was taught completely differently, at a much more basic level, and by teachers not trained in math. The culture shock of moving from a big university town to a worn-down post-industrial dump of a city was traumatic, and I started to become a problem child. Then 2 years later, we moved to a suburb of Rochester, and I was well behind my peers in mathematic instruction, especially in my ability to show my work. I would often get the right answer, but couldn't explain my reasoning. At first, this class didn't seem to be any help. Kids called the teacher obscene names, threw spitballs whenever he turned around to the board, and once, I even got rolled for my lunch money in class. Eventually, I went to the teacher and asked for help, and he did. I learned more from those free tutoring sessions than I could capture between the chaos in class. I quickly became the top performer, and thankfully, he never made that known. As the year continued, he told the disruptive ones to sit in the back and just not make noise or smoke. Every major infraction resulted in a visit to the principal and expulsion from the class. So after a month, things quieted down and some of us actually started learning. He would break us into smaller groups, with him helping the slow students himself, and a couple of us helping those who were, despite appearances sometimes, actually able and wanting to pass. Some people surprised me. One burnout had a horrible home life, but was actually smart, and we became friends. Another was from an immigrant family, and his English proficiency was slowly improving. In the end, I passed, and got back on track by taking collegiate 9th grade math in summer school. Today, I'm a mechanical engineer, and I owe it all to Mr. Removed. Now, the story of his death, rumor had it that he had a heart attack a few years before. From the time I knew him, he was, despite his midi-ish appearance, quite a regular jogger and exercise practitioner. You would often see him jogging around the track after school, not fast, but steady, and with more endurance than I had as a 14-year-old at the time. The year after I had his class, he dropped dead of a massive heart attack after one of his runs while showering. Any stories about how he was found were unsubstantiated, and you know how kids love to embellish. But his funeral and viewing brought out an unimaginable number of current students and faculty. I believe he was only in his early 50s, which means about a decade worth of students never got a chance to learn from him. He got me back on track in academics, but I truly believe he saved a few people from personal ruin. From what I remember, he died about 48 years ago. He was in a motorbike accident about a year before he passed. He was my personal tutor and would come into school wearing a bandana over his head, I guess to cover a scar. Cut to a year later, as a dance teacher at my school, he was showing some students a dance he had been working on and had a sudden aneurysm and died in class. Really rough time, because he was an incredible guy with a wicked sense of humor. The school ended up making a memorial garden for him. In 7th grade, I had a theater teacher who everyone knew had diabetes. The following year, I heard that he died from complications related to his diabetes, possibly a dangerously low blood sugar. In high school, the water polo coach had a heart attack and died. I knew who he was, but never had him as a coach or teacher. To make matters worse, his son went to the school, and everyone was always talking to him and asking him about it. It was so sad. He went missing, and they found his van at a local park. All summer long, on my way to work, I would have to drive down the interstate, and I would smell something dead. I thought it was just a deer, but come wintertime, they found his remains in the same spot that I had been smelling them off of side a little up an embankment. No one knows how he got there. It's not like he could have just walked there. And he was a very large man. No one could have drug him there. It was a weird situation. She fell and broke her hip, and doctors discovered she had some rare blood disorder. So the broken hip was really a blessing in disguise, because they could start treatment. Then she suddenly just died, and the whole thing took a week. Truth came out. She was an active alcoholic and had end-stage liver disease. Murdered by 3 students. It only really made it into local newspapers. Not a lot of details as to why they killed her, but they were sent to juvenile detention center. Don't know how long, but it's a minimum of 2 months, max 3 years. I never had the teacher, but I recognized her from a few meetings in the ceremony hall and seeing them interact with a few students in between classes. Rumors went around the boys were on drugs and alcohol in the evening. They recognized her in the streets, followed, then killed her as she got closer to her parked car. It's hard to say this is what actually happened because it wasn't reported on. This is relevant to this topic, but not necessarily relevant to, more relevant to the specific story, not the topic. So, 3 people that have higher order thinking, maybe they're under the age of 17, knowingly murder a human being, and they go to juvenile detention for 2 years, and then they are released back into society. I think things like that should be case by case. So, I don't know. What do you think about the juvenile laws regarding major felonies like murder, and, kidnapping and things like that? Thoughts? My former high school anatomy teacher died in a single car accident about 2 years after I graduated. I was at a college when my mom told me the news. He was one of my favorite teachers of all time. Kind, personable, chill, etc. I remember walking to class in college one day, and he happened to be a chaperone for a group of kids from my old high school touring my college. As I was walking to class, I heard someone screaming my name, and I turned around to see him hanging out of a school bus window to wave at me. Amazing man that was taken way too soon. Our 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Powell, was assaulted and murdered by an ex-police officer named David Middleton. Found her remains in a dumpster, and it shocked our entire family. We took the whole week off, and kids began to walk to school together in larger groups. It was a random attack, as he was a cable man at the time, and he killed one more girl before they caught him. If I remember correctly, I think he got caught by using one of her credit cards, and then they located his storage unit, which was telling that he planned to kill and assault more. This was in 1995. Cancer, unfortunately. I was extremely upset when it happened because she was one of the nicest teachers I had and one of the very few who respected me as a person. I was hurt that our school kinda just acted like she didn't die. That year, when the yearbook came out, there was no memorial page, nothing like that, just her picture, and no announcement or moment of silence when she first passed. Pretty shitty and careless in my opinion. Cancer though. Mr. Pope passed away from cancer in his 60s, which isn't novel or uniquely tragic. However, he was an incredible man that used one of his class periods each year to vulnerably share a deeply personal story of racism and lynching in the U.S. South he experienced in his youth. He also was an original Chippendale dance group member and was detained by the FBI for writing a critical letter to President Nixon on a roll of toilet paper. He invented his own symbolic math language and loved Bob Marley. I was really into making CDs in high school, and I made him one. He came back the next class period with a note on what he thought about each song. He saw each student for what they truly could be, and I regret to this day that I would never get to share what he meant to me. Had a rough high school health teacher in the 70s who we thought was just an old creeper, but I now realize was a predator. After his death, I found out that his wife and 8 children lived in poverty in an isolated house out in the country, while he tomcatted himself. He died in his Firebird racing a train to a crossing. He lost. His family ended up with improved living and overall economic conditions as a result of his death. High school football coach died of COVID. He never got vaccinated and was a staunch conservative. He thought it was all BS and continued to go to practice and told the kids to not wear masks. He was also diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. So everyone who liked him blamed the cancer and said he couldn't get the vaccine, but knew he died of COVID. I already knew he could get the vaccine because my coworker, battling stage 4 pancreatic cancer, passed away a year later, got the shots. The news was also conservative and wouldn't disclose his death as COVID related, but that he died of natural causes at 53, this was all in 2021. At my high school, one of my teachers was outed as being a pedophile. He was abusing one of the students he was tutoring. He was good looking and well liked by students and faculty. When the abused student finally went to the authorities, they launched an investigation, and the teacher was suspended pending the results. The very next day, he committed suicide. I don't remember if he hanged or shot himself. Once he did, all charges stopped, but the investigation continued to try to identify everyone at the abused. The student who came forward moved to another state. No one at our school heard another word from him. Teacher was having an affair with another teacher from my school, both married. It was during summer break, and they both lied to their significant others about having to go on a trip for a school-related training session. Instead, they were there. Let's read it again. Teacher was having an affair with another teacher from my school, both married. It was during summer break, and they both lied to their significant others about having to go on a trip for a school-related training session. Instead, they had planned a romantic getaway to lake. While they were there, they rented jet skis and were speeding along the lake when she somehow fell off hers, and he was too close behind and ran right over the top of her, breaking her neck and killing her. My 8th grade science teacher was a great guy and an engaging teacher. He was very short and thin, and he told us on day that it was because he had a 3-chamber heart. The 2 lower chambers did not have a wall between them, so the oxygenated blood coming from the lungs mixed with the deoxygenated blood from the body. Therefore, the blood that went out to his body only had about 3/5 of the amount of oxygen it should have carried. He was in his 30s then, and told us that when he was born in the late 40s and early 50s, he was not expected to live past age 2. He kept defying the odds throughout childhood and adulthood. He even had gotten married but did not have any children. His heart finally gave out a few years later, when I was a senior. Peace to you, Mr. Rowe. A teacher almost died the year before my freshman year. She had a severe peanut allergy to the point where she'd have an attack, even if she didn't eat or touch it, just being in the room. She told every student she had this the first day of school and told them absolutely no peanut products are allowed in her classroom for any reason. She even had a sign outside the door, all 4 years she was there. Well, some jackass kid didn't believe her and decided to open a recess in class, and she went into anaphylactic shock before he could eat one. Students panicked but got a teacher. She was taken to the hospital in a coma for a while. The kid admitted to the friend with guilt, but the friend turned him over to the office. He was expelled from the entire school district, and his parents had to take him to an entirely different school out of their way every day from then on. They would have been pressed charges had she not lived. Turns out she didn't. My unusual name taught English in my first year of high school. She was scarily obese, was often eating a Mars bar in class, and took regular breaks to go smoke at the nearest fire exit. Halfway through the year, she vanished and we got a replacement. We never saw her again. Fast forward many years, I'm now in my final year of university and talking to someone else who came from a different school. For whatever reason, the name of Ms. Unusual Name came up. Turns out she had a heart attack, spent a lot of time recovering, turned her life around, lost all her weight until she was majorly fit, and started teaching at a different school. Wild.